Hello students, how are you doing? As we know, I am Uday Kumar, educator of physics from Genesis Coaching Institute, Pan Bazar, Guwahati. And recently, on 17th, all the NEET aspirants have appeared for NEET 2022 examination. So, for the physics questions of NEET 2022, we are providing the key and solution. As there are several sets, we have taken a randomly set called set T2, and for that set T2 we are providing the physics solutions for all the questions, that means the key as well as the solutions of that set. Now from the solutions of that set you can definitely check the solutions of other sets also, because more or less most of the questions are same on all the sets. With that positive note, let us start the discussion of the paper. Okay, physics paper of NEET 2022. So it is the first question of set number T2. The question says that there are two hollow conducting spheres of radius R1 and R2, and R1 is greater than R2, and they are having equal charges. Then the potential, or they are asking the potential. Option 1, more or smaller sphere. Option 2, equal on both the spheres. Option 3, dependent on the material property. Option 4, more on bigger sphere. Clearly we know that what we know, potential is equal to, for spherical body, K Q by R. For spherical body we know K Q by R, the K is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. As the charge is same, we can say that potential is inversely proportional to radius. As we know that R1 is greater than R2, we can say that V2 is greater than V1. So therefore the smaller sphere will have more potential. So therefore option number 1 is correct. Option A is correct. The first option is correct for this one. Again, for set T2 I am saying, but you can check the questions and solutions and you can match them accordingly. Okay, in that manner. See now, that is the first question. The second question is, the angular speed of flywheel moving with uniform acceleration changes from. So initially its angular speed was 1200 rpm and its final angular speed was 3120 rpm, and they are asking, and time is 16 seconds. The time is 16 seconds. What is the time? It is 16 seconds. So they are asking the angular acceleration alpha in what? Radian per second square. They are asking in radian per second square. Here the question is given in rotation, but they are asking in radian. So therefore we know that 1 rpm we need to convert into rps by dividing it by 60. So it will be converted into rps. Now 1 rps, if we want to convert into radian per second, that means rotation to radian, we have to multiply it by 2 pi. In this manner we can convert the speed or angular speed from rotation per minute to radian per second. So therefore what is alpha? Alpha is delta omega by delta t, that is final minus initial angular velocity. Final minus initial, when we do 3120 minus 1200, we will get 1290 into 2 pi divided by 60 in order to convert its units from rotation per minute to what? Radian per second. And we will divide it with time. The time is 16 seconds. Solving, we will get alpha is equal to 4 pi radian per second square. Alpha is 4 pi radian per second square. So what is the for that option? Option number 1. Okay. In this manner we can solve the first two questions. Just make a note of it. Again in question number 3, they have given 3 sets of diagrams. In each set there are 2 p-n junction diodes. So it is first set, that is A. Again the second set, again they are connected to a voltage source of battery like this. Again like this. V voltage, you can say it is also V voltage, and C they have given like this. Okay, so in this manner we could see they have given the 3 diagrams, and in the question what they are asking that in the given circuits A, B and C, the potential drop across the 2 PN junctions are equal in. That means what? In each circuit there are 2 PN junction diodes, and they are asking the potential drop is same between the 2 PN junction diodes in which cases? They are asking the potential drop between the 2 PN junction diodes are equal in which cases. So it is very clear, students, potential drop will be equal if the biasing will be same. Because they are similar PN junction diodes, if the biasing is same, then potential difference will be same. See, clearly forward biased, so it is forward biased. It is also forward biased. So therefore, in this case, potential difference will be same. Here you can see, it is forward biased. It is, see it carefully, P is connected to negative terminal and N is connected to positive terminal, so it is reversed bias. So therefore, here the potential difference won't be same. Here again, P is connected to positive, N is connected to negative for both them. So therefore, it is forward biased. It is also forward biased, and therefore we can say that these two will have same potential difference. So what is the option? A and C will have same potential option. So third option is correct. A and C. A and C will have same potential difference. Okay. In the similar manner, we will go for question number 4. In question number 4, they are asking that two objects of masses 10 kg and 20 kg are respectively connected by two ends of a rigid rod. It is 10 kg body and it is connected using a rigid rod with 20 kg body, and this rod is having length of 10 meters and the mass of the rod is negligible. Now they are asking what is the position of center of mass of this system. What is the position of center of mass of this system? So let us say this point we will take as x equal to 0. So definitely this point will be x equal to 10. We know that position of center of mass xcm is given by m1 x1 plus m2 x2 divided by m1 plus m2 divided by m1 plus m2. So xcm will be equal to, you can calculate 10 into 0 plus 20 into 10 divided by 10 plus 20 30, that we will get 20 by 3 meters. Now its position is 20 by 3 meters from where? From the axis. Where is the axis? At 10 kg. At 10 kg. So this distance is 20 by 3 meter, and this is the position of center of mass. In the question they are asking what? They are asking that the distance of the center of mass of the system from 10 kg mass is. From 10 kg mass means from this axis. That is 20 by 3 meter. Correct. If they would have asked from 20 kg, we will subtract 10 minus 20 by 3. Then we will get 10 by 3. So the position of center of mass is 20 by 3 meters from 10 kg and 10 by 3 from 20 kg. Am I clear? Yes. In this manner you can solve the question number 4 as well. Please make a note of it. So after solving the question number 4, we will go for question number 5. In question number 5 they are saying that there is a biconvex lens. There is a biconvex lens, very simple. It is a biconvex lens. So it will be having, one has convex mirror. It is the combination of convex mirror and concave mirror, convex mirror and concave mirror, and the radius of curvature of this as 20 centimeter they have given. Biconvex lens of radius of curvature of 20 centimeter each. That means what? Its radius of curvature is also 20 centimeter. Its radius of curvature is also 20 centimeter. But you can clearly see that for convex lens the radius of curvature is positive, for concave lens it is negative. So therefore its radius of curvature is minus 20, it is plus 20, and they are asking power of the lens. They also mentioned that the refractive index is 1.5. They also mentioned that the refractive index of the lens is 1.5. So what is the formula of power? Power is 1 by focal length or 1 by focus, that is equal to P equal to 1 by F into mu minus 1 into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. Okay, minus 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2. So by substituting, and again you see mu is 1.5, so it will be 0.5. 1 by R1 means 1 by 20 centimeter. Again minus of 1 by 20 means minus 1 is 1 by 20, so minus 1 by 20 like this we will write. So this will get added up, so we will write like plus, that is equal to 0.5 into, what is that? 2 by 20, that is 1 by 10. But this is in centimeter. This is in centimeter. And while calculating power in diopter, the unit should be in meter. So we will convert it into meter by multiplying it with 10 power minus 2. So therefore power will be 5 diopter. Power will be plus 5 diopter. It is positive value, so power will be plus 5D. The option will be second option. The option will be second option. This is how we can solve the fifth question. This is how we can solve the fifth question. Please note it. Now, sixth question, we will go for sixth question. It is very simple question. In sixth question, it is theory question only. They are saying that a spherical ball is dropped into a long column. Let us say it is a long column, and the spherical ball is dropped into it. Spherical ball is dropped into it. So definitely there is a liquid in it. There is a liquid in it, and it is having high viscosity. There is some viscosity of the liquid which is high. So what is the correct graph they are asking what is the correct graph representing velocity of the body with respect to time, velocity of the spherical body with respect to time. Very clear students, very clear. Initially, while dropping the velocity will be 0, while dropping the velocity will be 0. Now, what will happen? This is the spherical body, mg will act downwards, as viscosity is there, so some viscous force will act upwards. That viscous force will act upwards. Generally it is proportional to velocity of the body, or it is proportional to square of the velocity of the body. This viscous force that is not mentioned in the question, so therefore some viscous force is acting upwards. So basically initially the body will experience acceleration because of the viscous force, but as the velocity increases, what will happen? This force will increase and again it will oppose mg. So therefore at one point will come when this force will be almost equal to mg and net force is 0. So therefore body will start with moving with constant velocity rather than getting accelerated. So therefore initially it will get accelerated slowly. The acceleration decreases because this force is increasing now, but mg is constant. So net force is decreasing on the body, that downward force on the body is decreasing, so acceleration decreasing. How acceleration decreasing? The slope of Vt graph is decreasing. At one point these two will be equal and body will start to move with a constant velocity called as terminal velocity. We know the concept of terminal velocity as well. So this is the graph. So out of those graphs, which is this one, they have given option, this is B, this is graph B, and in option 1 they have given B, so graph B is correct. Like that they have given many graphs. They have given A like this, they have given C like this, they have given D somewhat like this, it is D, but out of this B is correct. Like this it will move. This is the direct of the graph of the Vt curve. So option 1 is correct. So this is the 6th number question. Now we will go for question number 7. We will go for question number 7. The question number 7 says that the radius of gyration of we know that K is the notation for radius of gyration. Radius of gyration of thin uniform disc about its axis passing through its center and normal to the plane. So let us say K1 is the radius of gyration of the disc when the axis is passing normally through the center, and K2 is the radius of gyration of the disc, same disc, when the axis is along the diameter. When the axis is along the diameter, we know that the moment of inertia for this case is in both the cases, as the disc is same, mass is m only, radius is r only. Okay. So in the first case, moment of inertia is mr square upon 2. The moment of inertia is mr square upon 2. And what is the second case? In second case, moment of inertia is mr square upon 4. In second case, moment of inertia is mr square upon 4. Now we know that if I is moment of inertia, if we divide m, this is radius of gyration. So what is that? I by m is equal to radius of gyration. We can clearly say I by m is square of radius of gyration. So I1 by I2 is equal to K1 by K2 whole square. From the constant proportionality law, I1 by I2 is equal to K1 by K2 whole square. We know that I is equal to mk square. So therefore m is same for both the bodies. So you can say I1 by I2 is equal to K1 by K2 whole square. That is equal to, well, I1 by I2 how much? See, if we divide this by this, we will get 2. So K1 by K2 will be root 2. So what is the value? K1 is equal to K2 root 2. So they are asking what is the radius of gyration. So answer is root 2 is to 1. Root 2 is to 1. The first bit is again correct. So in this manner we can solve question number 7. Make a note of it. So let us move forward to question number 8 then. In question number 8 they are saying that there is a cell of mass m and its initial velocity is 0. Now it has been blasted or it explodes. You can say it explodes into 3 fragments of masses ratio 2 is to 1. Now total mass is m. It is 2 is to 1 means what? The mass of first shell is 2 by 5 m. The second one is 2 by 5 m. The third one is m by 5. Clearly we can see from the ratios. This is the mass of first fragment, this is the mass of second fragment, and this is the mass of third fragment. Okay. So therefore they are asking if the cells having equal mass, now see, this is the one cell having equal mass and this is the other cell having equal mass. they have velocities perpendicular to each other. They have velocities perpendicular to each other. Now why I am taking like this only? You can take anything. You can take any two directions where they are perpendicular. For easy calculation purpose, I am taking this like this. So it is V1, it is V2, its mass is definitely M1 and it is M2. And other one is, we don't know. Third body is having mass M3 and its velocity we need to find. Okay. From this we have to solve the value of velocity of third body. But the mass ratios are given. So we know that from the law of conservation of linear momentum, M1 V1 plus M2 V2 plus M3 V3 is equal to 0, because initially momentum was 0, because momentum is mass times velocity, but initial velocity is 0, so it will be 0. What is M1? 2 by 5 M into, what is V1? Let us say V1 is equal to, what is that? V I cap. We can say V1 is equal to V I cap. So in question they have given that the fragments having equal mass have velocities perpendicular and magnitude of the velocity is V, that is speed is V. So that's why I am taking V I cap. Again, for second one, 2 by 5 M into V j cap, that is equal to minus M3, it is M3, what is M3? M by 5 into V3. Now by vectorially solving this, M is again 5 and M are getting cancelled only. So we will get 2 taking common, V I cap plus V j cap is equal to, or we can take 2V common from this, 2V I cap plus j cap is equal to minus V3 is equal to minus V3. So therefore, what is the magnitude of V3? Again, magnitude is negative or positive, we don't take. What is magnitude of V3? 2 root 2 V, because its magnitude is root 2. So what is the magnitude of V3? 2 root 2 V. From that, what is the solution? Option number 2 is the solution. Okay, this is also this is a bit moderate question, not tough, not easy, moderate level question. Okay. Now, before going to next question, just note it down. Now in 8th question we can see that, eighth question is completed. In 9th question we can see that a long solenoid of radius 1 millimeter. So solenoid is like this. Now we know it is solenoid and inside a magnetic material will be there, So what is the radius? Radius is equal to 1 millimeter, that is equal to 10 power minus 3 meters. Okay, has how much? 100 turns per mm. 100 turns, number of turns is 100 turns per mm. So we can convert it into number of turns per meter, because standard notation is that 100 into 10 power 3, because 1 mm means 10 power minus 3 meter. So 100 by 10 power minus 3 is turns per meter. So that is 10 power 5 turns per meter. This is the value of small n, we can say, turns per meter. Okay. Next, what is the magnitude of current? I is 1 ampere. Magnitude of current is 1 ampere. Now what is they are asking? Magnetic field strength they are asking. Very simple. Na? What is magnetic field strength? It is mu naught n I, where mu naught is permeability of the free space. What is n? What is n? N is the number of turns per unit length, that is number of turns per meter, and I is the current. So B is equal to, now what is the value of mu naught? 4 pi into 10 power minus 7. So 4 pi into 10 power minus 7 into 10 power 5 into 1 is the field. So B is equal to 4 pi into 10 power minus 2 Tesla. What is the magnitude? 4 pi into 10 power minus 2 Tesla. Now what is the value of 4 pi? 3.14 into 4, we will get something like 12 point something, 12.5 we will get around, into 10 power minus 2 Tesla. So magnitude of B is 12.57 into 10 power minus 2 Tesla. Which option is correct? Option number 1. This is option number 1. 12.57 into 10 power minus 2 Tesla is correct. Okay. Please note it down. Coming back to question number 10. Question number 10 is what? T1, T2 with the energy of electron in first and second excited state. According to Bohr model, the ratio of T1 and T2 is. Okay. So we know that energy according to Bohr model is minus 30.6 into Z square by N square. This is the formula from according to Bohr model for energy. As the atom is same, electron. What is that? As the hydrogen atom, na? So as the atom is same, hydrogen is same, its Z will be same. It only depends on energy. Energy depends on what? Level. So E is proportional to 1 by N square. So what is that? E1 in case of here they are saying T1 by T2. In case of T1 by T2 is proportional to N2 by N1 whole square. So in first case what is that? N1 is nothing but 2. Why? It is first excited state. N equal to 1 means not excited. N equal to 2 means first excited. N equal to 3 means second excited. So N2 is 3, N1 is 2. So therefore T1 by T2 is equal to square of 3 by 2, that is equal to 9 by 4. So ratio is 9:4. Which option is correct? 9:4. That is third option is correct. Third option is correct. 9:4 is correct. Very simple question. Again, the difficulty of the questions was very nominal in this case. Only 1 or 2 moderate questions were there. Remaining always simple formula based. Even the students who are appearing for CBSE board exams, if they study properly, they can attempt all these questions. Yes. Now question number 11. It is also a simple question only. They are asking that a light ray falls on the glass surface of refractive index √3. So mu is given as √3 at an angle. So theta I, incident angle is 60 degrees. Now asking that what is the angle between reflected and refracted ray? What is the angle between reflected and refracted ray? From Snell's law, we know that, what we know, Snell's law is equal to, from Snell's law is equal to mu1 sin theta 1 or sin theta I is equal to mu2, you can say sin theta r. Now initially it is falling from glass. So before falling the glass, the refractive index is 1 because it is falling from here. Here the refractive index is √3. Here theta is 60 degrees. Solving you will get sin theta r is equal to 1 by 2. Therefore theta r is equal to 30 degrees. So angle between reflected ray and incident ray is 30 plus 60, that is, so see, very simple, it is coming like this. It is 60 degrees. It is going like this. It is 30 degrees. So what is that? What is the angle? 90 degrees. So it is incident ray, it is refracted ray. So angle between them is 60 plus 90, 60 plus 30, sorry, that is equal to 90 degrees is the correct option. Again, from Brewster's law also we can see, Brewster's law states that the angle between incident ray and refracted ray will be 90 degrees when tan theta is equal to mu. When tan theta I is equal to mu, you can see that in case of, if you substitute theta I here, tan 60 is equal to √3, that means the Brewster law is also satisfied. So clearly the angle between incident ray and refracted ray is 90 degrees only. The angle between incident and refracted ray will be 90 degrees based on Brewster's law also. So we can solve this by using Snell's law and Brewster's law. Snell's law is a bit lengthy. Brewster's law is, if by keen observation we can see, Brewster's law is easy. Directly we can solve. Okay, please make a note of it. Now, question number 12. In question number 12, they are saying that, if a source bubble expands, the pressure inside the bubble, very simple question. What is that? The pressure inside the bubble is given by P is equal to P0, where P0 is the atmospheric pressure, 4T by R, where R is the radius of the bubble and T is the surface tension. Where T is the surface tension, R is the radius. So simply, if radius increases, if it is expanding means its volume is increasing, that means radius is also increasing. Radius increases means what was the pressure will decrease. You can clearly see this one relation. Radius increases, that means volume increases means pressure will decrease. So therefore, as R increases, P decreases. What is the correct option? Option 4 is the correct option. Very simple. Also see, this kind of questions are being asked this year. Now, plane angle and solid angle, it is very simple. Every student knows about it. Plane angle have units like, what is plane angle units? We can say radians or degrees. And what is solid angle? Solid angle of units. Solid angles of units are striradians. But they don't have any dimensions. Solid angle has striradians and it is have radians. So they have units, but they don't have dimensions. So which is the correct option? Units they have, dimensions they don't have. angles, plane angles, which is correct, units but no dimensions. So option 4 is correct. Okay, they have units but no dimensions. Like that we can solve, very simple. Now again, question number 14 we will see. This is also simple question only. When light propagates through a material of relative permittivity epsilon r and relative permittivity mu r, the velocity of light v is given. Very basic relation. V is equal to c by under root of epsilon r mu r. Are you remembering this? V is equal to c by under root of epsilon mu r. If the medium is changing, the velocity of the light will decrease because of that medium, and that is dependent upon the permeability and permittivity of that medium in this manner. V is equal to c by under root of epsilon into mu r. So that is the third option. Simple equation based question they have given. Now we also study like this: c by v is equal to n, where n is under root of epsilon or mu r. Like this also we can study for CBSE exams. We will study. So therefore I am writing both the equations. So like this it can be solved. Again, now if we can go for question number 15. Question number 15 also very simple question. They are saying that there are two resistances of 100 ohm and 200 ohm and connected in parallel. The ratio of thermal energy developed in 100 ohm to that of 200 ohm in the given time is very simple. So see, it is 100 ohm, it is 200 ohm, I can say 100 ohm, 200 ohm, and they are connected parallel. Suppose the voltage is V. We know that heat energy or energy of the resistor is given by, I am saying this as R1 and I am saying this as R2. So ER1 is equal to, as the voltage is same, current is different, we use the formula V square by R1. Okay, and ER2 is equal to V square by R2. If they are connected in series circuit, what is same, current is same, then we will use the formula I square R. But here we use the formula V square by R because they are connected in parallel circuit. So voltage will be same. So therefore ER1 is V square by R1, ER2 is V square by R2. So E is inversely proportional to the resistance. So the energy of 100 will be more than 200 ohms. The energy dissipated 100 ohm will be more than 200 ohms. What is they asking? The ratio. Simple. ER1 by ER2 is equal to R2 by R1. See, inversely proportional term, that is equal to 200 by 100, that is equal to 2:1. 2:1 is the correct answer. Which option it is? It is the first option. 2:1 is the first option. You can check. Like this you can check. So up to 14 we have solved. Sorry, up to 15 we have solved. It is 14, it is 15 we have solved. So this is again, some questions they have given simple calculation, numerical questions. Just put the formula, use the logic and calculate within 1 minute. Or less than 1 minute. That kind of questions they have given. Some questions they have given direct formula based. If you know formula, you can tick. Very simple. Like that questions they have given this year. Please make a note of it. Now come for question number 16 of the set T2. They are asking the graph which shows the variation of de Broglie wavelength of a particle and its associated moment. Is again very simple silly question. From de Broglie's equation we know that what? Lambda is equal to h by p, where h is Planck's constant. Lambda is what? Lambda is the wavelength, p is the momentum. So we can say that lambda is inversely proportional to momentum. What is the graph of that? Rectangular hyperbola. I already discussed in the class. The diagram will be rectangular hyperbola. So as the lambda decreases, p will increase. You can see as p increases, lambda will decrease. This is the graph. What is the correct option? Correct option is 3. Like this they are given very simple question. Again, now for question number 17 you can see. In question number 17 they are saying a square loop of side 1 meter and resistance 1 ohm is placed in a magnetic field of 0.5 Tesla. Again, there is a square loop, this is 1 meter, okay, and resistance of the loop is 1 ohm, its side is 1 meter and the resistance of the entire loop is 1 ohm. It is placed in a magnetic field of strength 0.5 Tesla. So 0.5 Tesla is the strength of magnetic field, and the magnetic flux is, and it is perpendicular to the loop. Simple. If it is a square loop, if you treat it as a square loop, it is placed inside a magnetic field which is perpendicular to it, which magnitude is also given. Now what they are asking? They are asking magnetic flux to the loop. What is magnetic flux? Magnetic flux is nothing but B bar dot A bar. What is that? B bar dot A bar. So that is nothing but magnitude of flux into magnitude of area into cos of angle between them. BA cos phi. Okay. Now, if it is a square loop, B is perpendicular to it. Also its area vector is perpendicular to it. I told you, for any surface we can say circle, square, anything. For any 2D figure, the area vector will be perpendicular to the surface. So therefore, the angle between B and A will be, what is phi? Phi is 0 degrees. Why it is 0 degrees? For this square coil or square loop, the area vector is normal to its plane and B is also normal to its plane. That means what? The angle between them is 0 degrees. So therefore, we can simply write this value as 1 because phi is 0. So what is that? 0.5 into what is the area? 1 square. For circular side square, 1 square. So flux will be 0.5 Weber per meter square. Weber per meter square. Okay? Sorry, Weber, not meter per, no, sorry. Flux will be 0.5 Tesla per meter square. Sorry. Flux is 0.5 Tesla meter square, or you can say. So flux will be 0.5 Weber. See, Weber is equal to Tesla into meter square. Weber per meter square is Tesla. Just a confusion of units. You can see this. These are we can solve. So what is the option? 0.5 Weber means, what is the option? First option. Surprisingly, in this set, most of the options are 1. But it doesn't mean that you can blindly tick one option for every question. Most of the questions the answer is 1, but not for everyone. So you may end up scoring negative marks. So don't use such type of tactics in this type of competitive exams. Okay? Yeah, make a note of it. After solving 16, 17, we will go for solution of 18. So in question number 18, what they are asking? The dimension of MLT power minus 2, A power minus 2 belongs to. This is also a good question. This is a bit, yeah. So in this question 18, they are asking dimension of ML power minus 2, A power minus 2. Now how you will solve? You have to check. You have to check using proper knowledge. See, mass, length, T power minus 2, A power minus 2 is there. So we know that like this, B is equal to mu naught I by 2 pi r for any conductor. So it is what? Flux density. Flux density means Weber per meter square, and this is current. So this is ampere A. Okay, and it is length L. So by solving this, mu naught will be having ML T power minus 2 A square. These are we can solve. If they have directly asked what is the mu naught's dimensions, you can easily solve. But by seeing this, you have to guess that yeah, it is for mu naught using this formula. So therefore, it is for magnetic permeability mu naught, or mu we can say MLT power minus 2, A power minus 2. Okay, this is the dimension. Yeah, this is how we can solve. Now question number 19, you can see. When two monochromatic lights of frequency, so F1 is equal to mu and F2 is equal to mu by 2, are incident on photoelectric material, the stopping potential becomes Vs by 2 and Vs respectively. The stopping potential becomes Vs by 2 and Vs respectively. So the threshold potential is Vs by 2 and here Vs respectively. Okay. The threshold frequency for this metal is, now see, using this equation we will write the stopping potential Vs is equal to h mu minus phi and EVS is equal to, so therefore the data is not properly given in this question number 19. The data is not properly given, so therefore you might have getting grace marks for this. So question number 19 is for grace marks. Please make a note of it. The data is not sufficiently correct. They are given something, but there is no relation between the data. Okay, that's why it is not a correct one. Okay, now next question. In half wave rectification, question number 20. So in question number 19, you might end up getting what? Grace marks. Okay, if you have it. In half wave rectification, the input frequency is 60 Hz. The output frequency will be. So in rectification, we know that rectification, what happens? AC is converted to DC. AC is converted to DC. Suppose it is the AC input signal. Due to half wave rectifier, it is converted as like this. Okay, it is converted as like this. But the frequency will remain same. Frequency is not altered by using what? Frequency is not altered by using half wave rectifier. So therefore, its frequency will be same only. So what is the answer? 60 hertz. Answer is 60 hertz. Okay. Yeah. Frequency is not altered in the half wave rectifier. So like that we can solve 19 and 20 as well. Now what is question number 21? Yeah. Question number 21 is also very simple. They are asking that out of these graphs, out of these P versus V graphs, which represents adiabatic process. We know PV power gamma equal to constant is adiabatic process. We can say, and adiabatic process of something like this graph. We know like this, PV power gamma equal to constant. So therefore, P is inversely proportional to 1 by V power gamma. So they are having a rectangular hyperbola with slope V power gamma. So therefore, it is the graph, and second option 2 is correct. For PV equal to constant, it will be like this. So various for different process, different graphs are there. For this is the for adiabatic process. Okay, this is simple question. Question number 21. Like this. This is option number 2 is correct. Option number 1 is correct. Figure 2 is correct. Out of 4 graphs, it is the figure 2, second graph. This is correct. Option number 1 is correct. Option 1 is correct because option 1 is given as 2. This is one graph. Again, this is one graph. This is one graph. Like that they are given many graphs. But 2 is correct. 2 is why it is correct. It is having high slope. The slope of the falling curve is very high because it is PV power gamma equal to constant. Okay. So like that we can solve question number 21 as well. Now let us go for question number 22. Again, question number 22 is very simple. Question number 22 is very simple. They have given 4 electromagnetic waves and they are given the order of their wavelengths. We know that AM waves, AVM radio waves, microwaves, infrared waves, X-rays they were given. AM radio waves or radio waves have the largest wavelength. So therefore, out of those 4, we can say 10 power 2 meters is largest for them. And for microwaves, it is less than radio waves. So it will be around 10 power minus 2 meter. Okay, it will be around 10 power minus 2 meter. And for infrared radiations, it will be less than that of microwaves. So it will be 10 power minus 4 meter. And ultimately for X-rays, the wavelength is almost very small. So it is 10 power minus 10 meter. So in this manner, we can solve and we will get option 3 as correct answer. So for 21, there is no 22. There is no need of solution. Radio waves 10 power 2 meters. Microwaves 10 power minus 2 meters around. Infrared radiation waves 10 power minus 4 meter. And ultimately X-rays are having the least wavelength, very small wavelength, that is 10 power, having high frequency, 10 power minus 4. So option C. That means third option is correct. Option number 3 is correct for 22. Okay, this way we can solve. So they are just asking the order of the what? They are asking the order of the wavelengths, not the exact value. So by the comparison, by remembering that electromagnetic spectrum diagram, you can solve this. Please make a note of it. Now coming back to question number 23, they have given the displacement versus time graphs of 2 moving objects. It's a displacement versus time graph of 2 moving objects. This is 30 degrees and this is 45 degrees. Okay? Yes. The ratio of the respective velocity is very simple question again. Very simple question. Okay? So first one is making 30 degrees, second one is making 45 degrees. We know that slope of a ST curve, its slope is nothing but velocity. Why? Velocity is ds by dt. Okay, so velocity is slope of this. So slope of first one is what? Tan 30, that is equal to 1 by root 3. Slope 1. Slope of second one is what? Tan 45, that is 1. So what is the ratio of velocities? Velocity is equal to slope only, na? Of S versus T graph. So V1 by V2 is equal to 1 by root 3 by 1, that is equal to 1 is to root 3. Which option is correct? 1 is to root 3 means option number 3 is correct. Very simple question again. just a basic concept question. Next, question number 24. Question number 24. So in question number 24, what they are asking, in Young's double slit experiment, a student observes 8 fringes in certain segment of the screen when a monochromatic light of 100 nanometer wavelength is used. Simple. 8 fringes are observed when lambda is 600 nanometer. Now they are asking how many fringes will be observed when lambda will be 400 nanometer. When lambda will be 400 nanometer. They are asking if lambda is 600 nanometer, 8 fringes have been observed. If lambda will be 400 nanometer, what is number of? We know that L lambda equal to constant. YDSC, we know L lambda equal to constant. So 8 into 600 nanometer is equal to 400 nanometer into N2. Solving, nanometer will definitely get cancelled. This will be get cancelled. 4 2 ja 8. So here N2 is 12 fringes. It will get 12 fringes. So therefore N2 is equal to 12 and option 3 is correct. From the concept of L lambda equal to constant, we can solve this question. In YDSC, for certain wavelength, number of fringes is 8. For another wavelength, what is number of fringes? Simple, N lambda equal to constant. We will solve this and we will get the answer. Okay? Yeah. Now we will go for question number 25. We will go for question number 25. In question number 25, what they are asking? Question number 25 is asking that the peak voltage of AC source is equal to, very simple again. What is the peak voltage? Suppose I am saying that Vp is the peak voltage, that is equal to root 2 times of RMS voltage. Everybody knows that. For A sin omega t, if a voltage V of t is A sin omega t or V naught sin omega t, then Vrms is equal to what? V naught by root 2. Vrms is equal to what? V naught by root 2. We know that. So therefore, what is V naught or Vp peak value? Vrms into root 2. So from that, there are 3 or 4 options given. The RMS value of the peak voltage is equal to RMS. That is first option. No. Root 2 times RMS. Yes, correct. 1 by root 2 times RMS. Wrong. Blunder. Voltage supplied to circuit. That is wrong. So therefore, the peak voltage is nothing but equal to the root 2 times of RMS value. From that, we can say that option number 2 is correct. For 25th question, option number 2 is correct. Okay. Now, from that we will solve. Then 26th question we will see. We will see that 26th question. In 26th number question, we can see that if the initial tension on a stretched string is doubled, initial tension of a stretched string is doubled, the ratio of the final and initial speed of the transverse wave is, very simple. From waves, what we discussed, if a string is, if T is the tension in the string and is producing a transverse wave, what is that? We can say that the speed of that wave front, or the speed of that, what we can say, the speed of that, the question is asking transverse wave, right? The speed of the transverse wave is proportional to the root of the tension. That means tension in the string is proportional to the square of the wave of the transverse wave produced, square of the velocity of the transverse wave. So tension in the string is proportional to the square of the velocity of transverse wave. So transverse velocity of transverse wave is proportional to root times of tension. Root times of tension, or tension power 1 by 2. From this, what is happening? Tension is being doubled. So V1 by V2 is equal to T1 by T2 implies whole square again. Or we can write V1 by V2 is equal to root under T1 is T, T2 is 2T. This is cancelled. So V1 by V2 is equal to 1 by root 2. Okay. So what is the answer? 1 is to root 2. Ratio is 1 is to root 2. Option number 2 is correct. Very simple. From waves chapter we learned that whenever the string is there, it is having some tension, and because of the tension, if it is producing a transverse wave, the velocity of the transverse wave is proportional to the root of the tension, or we can say the tension in the string is proportional to the square of the velocity of the transverse wave. From that relation, again, this is simple relation only, but you should have minimum basics, minimum formulas you have to remember in your mind, so you can solve this type of question. Okay. Again, I am classifying this as a bit moderate question because most of the students won't remember this relation. But if once you remember the relation, it is very easy. So the velocity of transverse wave is proportional to square root of the tension in the string. Okay, this is how we can solve the question number 26. Please note it down. Now coming to question number 27. 27 is assertion reason type or statement type question. So first statement they have given that Biot-Savart's law give us the expression for magnetic field strength of an infinitesimal current element ideal of a current carrying conductor only. Yes, we know that Biot-Savart's law is equal to dBr is equal to mu naught into IDL I into dl bar cross r bar divided by 4 pi r cube. So this is how the Biot-Savart law is defined. Yes, it will give the magnetic field of infinitesimal small part of a conductor of what? Of current I and radius r. Okay. From that we can say that it is the correct statement 1 is correct. Now what is the second statement? Second statement is Biot-Savart's law is analogous to Coulomb's law of charge q when found being related to the field produced by scalar source ideal while the latter being produced by vector source q. Again that is wrong na. Why? The Coulomb's law is related to the scalar source. Charge is scalar source, but they are giving the charge is vector. But in this case IDL bar, the source here is IDL bar. This is the current conductor is the source of magnetic field we know. So this source is vector. This is not scalar. So they are given contradiction. So therefore statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is false. So which option is saying that statement 1 is correct and statement 2 is false means second one. Second statement is correct option. Okay. Now question number 28. Question number 28. In question number 28 again they are saying that as the temperature increases, the electrical resistance decreases in conductors, and what about conductors and semiconductors they are asking. We know that conductors have positive thermal coefficient. So therefore R is equal to R naught into 1 plus alpha delta T. As temperature increases, as alpha is positive, as temperature increases, R is equal to R naught into 1 plus alpha delta T. Here alpha is positive for conductors, so change in temperature increases, that means temperature increases means R will increase. But in semiconductors, as delta T increases, as this alpha is negative for them, this overall value will decrease, so resistance will decrease. So for conductors, resistance will increase with respect to temperature, and for semiconductors, resistance will decrease with respect to temperature. When temperature increases, resistance will increase in case of conductors. When temperature increases, resistance will decrease in case of semiconductors. What is the correct option? So for the correct option, what is they were given? Increases for conductors but decreases for semiconductors. So option number 2 is correct for question number 28. Option number 2 is correct for question number 28. Now we will go for question number 29. What is question number 29? In question number 29 they are asking the energy, that very simple question again, just a simple formula based question. Just read it once. The energy that will be ideally radiated by 100 kilowatt transmitter in 1 hour is. So they are giving that. In question number 29 giving that the power of the transmitter is 100 kilowatt. The power of the transmitter is 100 kilowatt, and they are asking how much energy it will radiate. How much energy is radiate in 1 hour? In 1 hour. Time is 1 hour. We can clearly know that energy is equal to power into time. Energy is equal to power into time. So energy it will radiate is how much? 100 kilowatt. That means 100 into 10 power 3 into what is the time? Time is 1 hour means 3600 seconds. That is 3600 seconds. Solving this, we will get energy is equal to 36 into 10 power 7 joules. 10 power 7 joules. That is the energy. Again, if you want to convert it into kilojoule or megajoule, you can write 360 megajoule. You can write if the examination is given, but the examination is directly given in joules. So what is the correct answer? 36 into 10 power 7 joules. Option 4 is correct for question number 29. Option 4 is correct for question number 29. Okay. This we can write as 360 megajoule. Why? 360 into 10 power 6 megajoule. That is not required here. Okay. Now final question of the set A. No, sorry. There are 35 questions now. Okay. So question number 30 we can see. What is question number 13? A body of mass 60 gram experiences a gravitational force of 3 Newton. Mass of the body is 60 grams. Mass of the body is 60 grams. That is equal to 60 into 10 power minus 3 kg. So 6 into 10 power minus 2 kg. This is the mass. What is the force? F is equal to 3 Newton. They are asking magnitude of gravitational field intensity. Gravitational, very simple. Gravitational field intensity they are asking. They are asking gravitational field. We know that gravitational field intensity is equal to force upon mass. That is nothing but force upon mass. Okay. So Ig, gravitational field intensity is equal to, what is the mass? Sorry, what is the force? 3 Newton. What is the mass? 6 into 10 power minus 2 kg. So solving this will get 50 Newton per kg. 50 Newton per kg. Okay. Solving this will get 50 Newton per kg. That is the first option. The gravitational intensity or gravitational field intensity is nothing but force by mass. That is nothing but this. Okay. Now, question number 31. We will go for question number 31. Again, it is very simple concept of beta plus decay. Let us see. In question, they are giving that sodium 20 to 11 changes to X plus positron is evolved plus some energy is evolved. So it is simply beta plus decay equation. Here, as one positron is changing, one positron is coming out, so it is E plus. As one positron is coming out, what does that mean? Its atomic number will decrease by 1 unit because when positron is gone. So now sodium will change to neon because its atomic number is changed, but the mass remains unchanged because there is transfer of positron only. So it is beta plus decay. So what is X? X is nothing but 22 neon 10. It is 22 neon 10 plus again positron is evolved plus some energy is evolved. That is different story. So what is the correct option? The X is nothing but 22 neon, 22 10 neon. What is that? Option number 2. Mass remains unchanged, but atomic number will change and hence the element will change. Sodium will change to neon. That is the question number. What is it question number again? Question number 31. 31 option is 2. Now we will go for question number 32. Yes, 32 is oral. The angle between electric lines of force and equipotential surface is what? We know that whenever the potential across a surface is constant, along that means if a surface is having, if each and every point of that surface is having same potential, that is called as equipotential surface. And what is the angle made by electric field with that? The angle made by electric field lines with that equipotential surface is 90 degrees. That is theory part. There is no numerical, there is no solution required. Simply we read that, we understood that. What we understood? The angle between electric field lines and equipotential surface is 90 degrees. So what is the option? Option is option 2. Electric field is always perpendicular to what? Equipotential surface. That we learn in the electrostatics chapter. Okay? Yes. So electric field is always perpendicular to electric field is always perpendicular to equipotential surface. So therefore the angle between them is 90 degrees. That is option number 2 for question number 32. Now question number 30. We will go for question number 33. Yeah, we will go for question number 33. So in question number 33, what they have given? A copper wire, 33 we are solving. A copper wire of length is 10 meter, radius of the wire is 10 power minus 2 by pi meter. Okay. Resistance is 10 ohm. Electric field strength of electric field is given by 10 volt per meter. Strength of electric field is 10 volt per meter. They are asking current density. They are asking current density. J is equal to how much? We know that I is equal to J into A or J equal to I by A here. If you are able to calculate I, area you can calculate J. Now see, very simple students. What is electric field strength? 10 volt per meter. So what is the voltage? 10 volt per meter into what is the length? Length is nothing but 10 meters. So 10 into, for 1 meter it is 10 volt. L is equal to 10 meter. So voltage will be 100 volts. Okay, voltage will be 100 volts. Now what is the area? Area is nothing but pi r square na. So pi into 10 power minus 4 pi square. Pi is cancelled. So area will be 10 power minus 4 by pi. Area will be 10 power minus 4 by pi. Radius is, sorry, it is root pi. Okay, root pi. So it will be pi. So pi is cancelled. 10 power minus 4 will be the area. So therefore, now voltage is 100 volt. What is current? Current is voltage by resistance from Ohm's law. Voltage 100 volts, resistance is 10 ohm. So 100 by 10, current is 10 ampere. From that we can get current density is equal to J is equal to current is 10, area is 10 power minus 4, implies J is equal to 10 power 5 ampere per meter square. It is current per unit area na, so therefore unit for J is ampere per meter square and it is 10 power 5. So what is that? J is equal to 10 power 5 ampere per meter square, which is the correct option. Option number 3 is the correct option. You can also solve this by using J is equal to sigma E. Conductance into electric field strength is this. From Maxwell equation, J equal to sigma E. J equal to what is sigma? Sigma is 1 by rho. 1 by rho, that is into E. E is already given 10 volt per meter. Now R is equal to rho L by A. Okay. From R we can calculate A is equal to pi R square, that is equal to 10 power minus 4. Okay. This is area. So area is known. Length is 10 meter. We know length equal to 10 meter. Rho we need to calculate. R is 10 mho. So from that you can calculate rho. You can substitute here. E is already given as 10 volt per meter. From that also you can calculate J. Then also J will come how much? 10 power 5 ampere per meter square. There are two methods to solve this question. So this is a bit good question. So this is on the moderate level, not easy level. This is a bit good question, calculation based question. Like that we can solve. From this we can calculate J equal to sigma E we can use, or we can use V equal to IR indirectly. That is J equal to I by A. Here A is known, but I is unknown. How we are calculating I? I you are calculating by using V equal to IR, that formula. Okay, please make a note of it. So now coming to question number 34, again very simple question. The ratio of distance travelled by freely falling body in first, second, third, fourth, second is. So basically we need to know the formula for S nth. We know that S is equal to ut plus half at square. Again S of t plus 1, or we can Sn is equal to, you know this formula. See, you might be knowing this formula. S is equal to un plus half an square, where n is time in seconds. Sn plus 1 is un plus 1 plus half an plus 1 whole square. Now what is the distance travelled in nth second? Sn plus 1, see, in 2 seconds it is coming here, in 3 seconds it is coming here. We subtract this distance by this distance. This is what? Distance travelled in third second. Second to third, that third second, that's how we can solve. So Sn plus 1 minus Sn is equal to, we know the formula, but still I am writing the derivation part. Very simple formula only. U plus A by 2 into 2n minus 1. Okay, this is the formula for nth. Now as the bodies are initially at rest, U is equal to 0. As the bodies in the question it is given that freely falling body means initially the velocity will be 0. So we know that Sn plus 1 is, or we can say S nth is directionally proportional to 2n minus 1. Okay. Now for first you can put 1. So S 1th is proportional to 1. N equal to 1 you will get 2 into 1 minus 1, that is 2. S second is equal to 4 minus 1 3. S third is equal to 6 minus 1 5. 1 3 5 7, like odd numbers will come. Simple. Okay. So the answer is 1 is to 3 is to 5 is to 7. S fourth will be 7. So therefore answer is 1 is to 3 is to 1 is to 3 is to 5 is to 7. Simple. This is the formula we use. So what is the option? Option number second is the correct option. Option second is correct option. Now we will go for 35th question. 35th question is what? An electric lift with maximum load of 2000 kg. Lift plus passengers. So what is the maximum load? 2000 kg is the M max. Maximum. ML, right? Maximum load. Is moving up with a constant speed of 1.5 meter per second. It is moving up with a constant speed of 1.5 meter per second. And as it is moving up, there is some frictional force. The frictional force is nothing but 3000 Newton. So that frictional force is 3000 Newton. You can clearly see when the lift is suspended like this, it is moving up. This is tension. The mg is acting like this. As its movement is upwards with constant velocity, the tension will definitely act upwards, the friction will act downwards. So you can write T is equal to F plus mg. What is the tension? F plus mg. Now, what is the mass of the body? 2000 kg. Let us assume G is equal to 10 meter per second square. So what is the tension? Tension is 3000 plus 2000 into 10, that is 20,000. So therefore tension is 23,000 Newton. Tension is 23,000 Newton. Now in the question what they are asking, if the speed is 1.5 meter square, the power delivered. Power delivered. They are asking power equal to how much? We know that I am writing here, we know that power is equal to Fv, force into velocity, or here net force into velocity. What is net force? Net force here is nothing but tension T. So net force is equal to 23,000 into 1.5, that is 3 by 2 we can write. By solving we will get power value as 34500 watts. Okay, we will get 34500 watts. That is the answer. So by solving this we will get the power as 34500. What is the equation of power? Force into net force into velocity, constant velocity. It is moving up with constant velocity of 1.5 meter per second. Its force is 23,000, that is 23,000 Newton. So therefore power will be force into velocity, that will be 34,500 watts, or we can write it as 34.5 kilowatts, but they are not given in this unit. They are given it as 34,500 watts. What is the option? 34,500 watts means option 2, power is equal to 34,500 watts. That is the correct option. Okay. So you know that in NEET paper there are two sections. Section A, all the questions are compulsory or mandatory to attempt. That means all are carrying some marks. All of them have some weightage. So those are 35 questions. So in this video we have discussed with all those 35 questions and solutions of all those 35 questions. And from my point of view and also feedback from my students, the first section was easy to moderate. Most of the questions is very easy, just formula based or just concept based. By looking the question you can solve within 30 seconds or 1 minute. And some questions required some calculations like this or like this. 1 or 2 questions required some basic calculations, but that are also very easy, very nominal questions. So therefore the paper level is very well easy to moderate. Now in the second set of this video we will discuss the section B. In section B there are 15 questions, out of which 10 are compulsory, out of which any 10 you have to attempt, depending on of your choice. So all the 15 questions of the section B we will discuss in the upcoming lecture, which will be the sequel of this lecture. Okay, for the time being, thank you.